Welcome to the Go Find Nervous Show, the show where we find out 3 experiences at least that made our guests nervous on their journey to success. I'm your host, Jake Bolig. A couple things real quick. We got a book coming out. You can get this for free, and you can find that in the description. We're going to put links to where you can get this booklet for free, the booklet that started it all. Also, if you're watching on your phone, if you would, kick your phone vertical real quick and hit the like and subscribe button. We appreciate it. It helps the show out. So today, I got a really cool guest today. We linked up on social media, and he's writing a book. This is a really cool story. It caught my attention right away, and I got to speak with him yesterday, and so I'm excited for him to share the story of a little bit about him and his journey on this book that he's writing about his grandfather. So Tom McAuliffe is on the show today. Tom, I appreciate you being here.
Hey, aloha from Florida. How you doing? Good to see you. Thanks a lot for having me on the show. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you're here. It's a cool journey that you have, and we vibe because we have some of the similar artist background. We do a lot of different things, and so we really hit it off. And you were telling me the story about your grandfather, and so let's get into that. If you could talk about this book that you're writing, that's about to come out, and
Sure.
kind of how that went about.
And let me just say at the outset, you got to do stuff that gets you out of your comfort zone. We all have things that make us nervous. Mm-hmm. I've been nervous. I've been wanting to write a book for 20 years. And my grandfather is Tommy McAuliffe. He's a world famous armless golfer who basically lost both of his arms when he was 9 years old in a streetcar accident and learned how to play par golf and traveled the United States and indeed traveled the world as doing exhibitions of golf. But then in the 50s and 60s, traveled the country doing positive thinking talks about how to use the power of the mind to overcome the handicaps and the cards that God has dealt you. So about maybe 6 months or so ago, we discovered a whole bunch of old papers and photographs and such like that from his days in vaudeville, around the Great Depression, World War II, all that. And it was just a treasure trove. And inside there, we found a manuscript that he had intended to publish. And get this, there's 120 some pages, double spaced, each letter typed by him with a pencil in his mouth, hitting the keys of the typewriter one at a time.
That's incredible. Yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
Pretty crazy. So it's called Mr. Mulligan, the life of armless golfer Tommy McAuliffe. He was in Ripley's Believe It or Not. He was on television a number of times. This Is Your Life with Blake Edwards. You Asked for It with Art Howe. I'm just really proud to be his grandson. And in those papers, we found his manuscript. So I am also publishing his manuscript so many years later, first written in 1939, and talks about the power of positive thinking. Wow. And it's called No Handicaps, the Life Philosophy of Armless Golfer Tommy McAuliffe, and then has the companion book, Mr. Mulligan, more about his life. The No Handicaps book is pretty kind of technical from a psychological standpoint of how to overcome a handicap. Maybe you've lost a leg, and he was very involved with veterans, with the disabled American veterans folks. We just got a shot of the cover. I don't know if you can see that, but
yeah, pretty close to the camera. Yeah, so people can see it. Yeah, I mean that's amazing that he taught himself how to do that. And he, like you said, he played with. I think you mentioned before he played with presidents or something like that.
He played with some heavyweights. He played with Walter Hagen, that's Bobby right. Jones, who was an Olympian and also won the U.S. Open. Of course, the great Arnold Palmer. He played with him, and wherever he would go, he would always make a point of going to the local children's home and or a veterans center, and just sit there and shoot the breeze with them, and talk about how a person's mental outlook makes all the difference.
That's pretty incredible because that's obviously that type of thinking and that not thinking so much, but that kind of material is prevalent in today's world. You see a lot of positive thinking, stuff like that. But back then, 1939, I mean, I bet a lot of people looked at him like, come on, man, this is some hocus pocus stuff. But it was real. That's real psychology. That's
Well, you
valid.
figure the book Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, I
Mm-hmm.
think it was, that didn't come along until the mid 50s. Um, there's a book called As a Man Thinketh by
Great book.
Dr.
Yeah.
James Allen,
Mm-hmm.
published in 1927.
Mm-hmm.
He had met my grandfather as well. But we talked
Wow.
a little bit about, he made great efforts in the mid 30s of rehabilitation and equal rights for the handicapped under
Mm-hmm.
law, and did a lot of lobbying on Capitol Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And folks would say that, you know, when a politician wouldn't give a lobbyist a time of day, they would always give Tommy some time, so that they could either talk golf, and then on the back nine, he would talk to them and bend their ear a little bit about making sure that the playing field is equal for those that, through no fault of their own, have a handicap.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. And then I think you told the story you alluded to earlier. He had lost his arms in a street car accident or something like that,
Right.
right?
He was 9 years old and was heading out to meet his mom at the store, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a fall, and it had just rained. And you probably are aware, up in northern cities, after a long summer, when it first rains, the roads are very, very slick because of
Mm-hmm.
all the oil and gasoline from the summer accumulating.
Mm-hmm.
Slipped, fell on a rail, streetcar line, knocked himself out with both of his arms stretching across the train tracks. Before anybody could get him, a streetcar came along and cut off both of his arms at the shoulder socket.
Oh my gosh.
Um, he got himself up, amazingly, because of the amount of blood that he had lost, and
Yeah, that's crazy.
his house was right across the street, and went back into the backyard, and everybody said at once, "Oh my God!" Long story short, learned how to go to school, take notes, flip pages with his tongue
Mm-hmm.
and mouth, um, and it was truly inspirational and amazing man.
Well, that's an incredible story, and I mean that fits perfect just with this go find nervous philosophy that we talk about. Is I mean to be able to get up like that. Now let's talk about you for a second. How long have you been? You said you wanted to write a book for 20 something years. Have you always been an artist in that capacity, or?
Well, I'm basically, I have a background in magazine writing. I'm a magazine editor, or was a magazine editor and magazine writer for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but this is my first foray into a full length book, and it'll be available on Amazon and Kindle and Barnes and Noble next month, all that stuff. So be looking for it. Um, my background is as a photojournalist in the United States Navy.
Okay.
I was in Combat Camera Group Atlantic for a number of years, and so the stuff that's happening in Ukraine right now, um, really makes me a little bit upset. Um, so I was in the Navy, and then I
Mm-hmm.
got out, and I was an entertainer for a number of years. So I worked on cruise ships, Las
Okay.
Vegas, doing a singing comedy act, kind of
Okay.
a
A
thing.
crooner, huh? Okay. You're out
Yep,
there.
yep.
Okay.
I was the opening act, singing comedian, opening act for Marilyn McCoo of the Fifth Dimension,
Okay.
on Princess Cruise Lines and Dolphin Cruise Lines. And let's see, then I became a realtor down here
It's
in
awesome.
Florida and made some money,
Yeah.
which is always a good thing.
Gotta have it.
And live here with my wife here on the Emerald Coast, down here in Destin, Florida. And life is good. And
Yeah.
you gotta get outside your comfort zone. I think
Yeah.
that's the one thing that attracted me to your show. And now you're becoming so popular. Now you got several episodes, I know, and it's so important. How many times, it's interesting. I've been reading this book by a lady who is a hospice nurse.
Okay.
And one of the things she said was, in every single person who is getting ready to pass, not one time in the 20 years she's been doing this, has she ever heard them say, wow, I'm sorry I did this, or I'm sorry I did that? It's always, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. And it's our nervousness. It's our
our fear gets into play, right?
It is. It does. What's the worst that can happen? I mean, that's the one thing they teach you in sales is they say no.
Right.
So it doesn't work out. You'll do something else.
Right. I mean, very few people starve in America. It's not happening. You know, I mean, that's just not. We're lucky and fortunate to be in a country that's like that. But yeah, like you said, what's the worst that can happen here, at least? But yeah, that's interesting. So tell me about when you were the thing that caught my attention was when you were doing the cruise ships, because I've always thought that would be a fascinating job to be on a cruise ship, travel around. You know, you're doing a deal, you're entertaining. How did you get that gig?
I got that through my agent in Miami.
Okay.
And of course, the cruise. This was 20 years ago, and the cruise ship business was very different then. Now, basically, they have these prepackaged shows, and they hire students right out of theater school. It's a great gig for them as a first gig, but the independent headlining performer like Marilyn McCoo or Kenny Smiles, they just don't do that very much anymore. And then, of course, with the virus now, it's going to be interesting to see if the cruise ship industry can come back and make a go of it.
Right.
Our nation is so tired, you know, with the virus and now Ukraine and Afghanistan and the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's a real rough time.
I don't disagree. I agree with you completely, and I think that's why people can take inspiration from stories like the one you're writing about with your grandfather, and take inspiration from, you know, listening to your wisdom, and you talk about going to find nervous with, you know, the shows. And let me ask about you becoming a writer, because I'm a writer, so I'm always interested. I remember when I first got my very first magazine publication. It's like 2007, I think, 2006
Right.
or 2007. I thought it was like a small magazine, small hometown magazine, and it was just the coolest thing. But it take like that first publication. Wait a second, I'm in a magazine. It's a really
There you go.
cool. It's a really cool feeling. But what about you? How did that journey start with you? And was
Well,
there any kind of hardships, or was it pretty easy for you?
well, for me, I got trained as a photojournalist in the United States Navy.
Right.
I was able to go to Syracuse University for a year, learn about writing. But you know, the number one thing, what they say, writers write. And while I haven't been writing books, I have a journal and write every day, and you should too. That's how you hone your craft. Yeah. And there's such a plethora now of tools and things for writers, forums, Facebook pages where you can talk back and forth. And but yeah, you got to just write every day. And there's so many stories that need to be told. You know what? You know, the other thing that I was thinking about too after we talked the other day was, you remember that movie Hidden Figures?
I don't recall it.
It's about three black ladies who worked with NASA and helped put us into space.
Okay.
It's called Hidden Figures.
Okay.
And when I watched that movie, I said to myself, how many other stories have been suppressed?
Inspirational stories like that. Yeah.
Either on purpose or just through lack of knowledge and like that. How many stories have yet to be told? Give you an example. I just found out that a lake near my house, right? Beautiful spring-fed lake, used to allow people to swim there.
Okay.
But back in the early 1950s, some black people were caught swimming there.
Okay.
And so the local county government said that no one could swim there anymore.
Wow. That's crazy.
And for 60 years now, that lake has gone untouched, and is only now, in the last 10 years or so, people are allowed to swim there again.
That's incredible. People are like, wait, what is the deal? What are we doing this for? And there's so many things like that that people don't have any use logic for anything. That's interesting. You said one thing, Tom. Sorry to cut you off. You said one thing that really stuck with me that other people listening can apply to whatever they're doing as well. Is you said writer's right, and that can be applied to anything, whether whatever your craft is, do the craft, right? Like do it every day, do it when it sucks, do it when you don't want to, and do it every day. And eventually you turn into this thing where people go, wow, you're really good. And you're like, oh wait, I've been doing it for 20 years every day. Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm an overnight sensation and it only took me 20 years to do it.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. But I think that's a great piece of advice for anybody listening that can apply to anything. It's we get caught up into this want to mindset. Like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's like, just do it. That you're a writer or you're the thing the moment you start doing it. And the moment you stop doing it, you're no longer that thing. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But,
well, we have a whole series of books. The next book we're doing is on General Arthur McAuliffe. He was the one that said nuts to the Germans in World War II. I don't know if you know that story.
I don't know that story.
Just
I'm a huge World War II fan, though. Give it to me.
Really quick. So the Germans have the new Panzer tank.
Right.
Excuse me. Have the new Panzer tank, and the city of Bastogne in Belgium is surrounded by the Germans. The city of Bastogne is a very, I've been there. It's a very beautiful city. A lot of 16th and 17th century cathedrals, stained glass, and like that. The Germans sent a messenger to General McAuliffe at the high command, and the German's messenger hopped off his motorbike and said, "We say you need to surrender." The general, before he could think, said, "Nuts." And before they could stop him, the German messenger jumped on his motorbike and took off back to the German side and gave the message of nuts to the Germans. It took the Germans 3 days to figure out what nuts meant. And during those 3 days, George Patton and the Third Army broke through and saved the town.
What a story.
So,
Lost in translation. Wow.
Yeah. General Anthony McAuliffe, who said nuts to the Germans.
And that's who's that?
That's my great grandfather on my dad's side. So that is Grandpa Tommy's brother. That would be Grandpa Tommy's. That would be Grandpa Tommy's brother.
About that time frame. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. What a little family history you have there, Tom.
That's kind of a crazy family. You know, I come from a family of characters. So,
well, tell people listening. We could talk. My show is always too short because once we start talking, I can always go for hours. But we gotta keep it. We gotta keep it within the timeline. Tell people again the books you have coming out, where they can expect to get them. I'm definitely getting a copy of them, and then
next month we've got Mr. Mulligan, the life of world famous armless golfer Tommy McAuliffe, and we have No Handicaps, his life philosophy. So we have 2 books. They'll be available on Amazon, Book Baby, Barnes and Noble. There'll be physical books as well as ebooks. You know, it's interesting. We read a stat the other day that 73% of the books sold now are digital books. Kindle,
that many. Wow,
PDFs, all of that stuff. And of course, you're not killing as many trees, so that's a good thing too.
Sure. Right on. Okay, Tom.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it, and thanks for all you do.
I appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you later.
God bless.
All right. Hey, one last thing before you go. Leave a comment. Which example did you most align with from today's show? I'm curious. I want to know. Also, if there's somebody that you want to find out what's made them nervous, leave their name in the comment. I'll try to get them on the show. Follow me on social media at Jake Bolig. Follow the show at Go Find Nervous. And if you don't mind, subscribe. It helps me out the whole algorithm thing. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Go Find Nervous.